Welcome back to the Restaurant Growth Show podcast. Today, we're joined by MaryBeth Maskovas, a data expert with 10 years of experience in the restaurant and QSR space. She's worked with major brands like Wendy's, helping them solve complex problems in data, loyalty, and marketing technology. This is right up our alley. We love this. From analyzing customer feedback to creating insights that drive loyalty, MaryBeth's expertise helps restaurants harness data to grow and improve. We love all of these things. I got to tell you from the outset, Mary Beth, we're really excited to have you on the show. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thanks so much. I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, and we're super glad that you're here. Had some issues over the past couple of weeks getting you on the show, but you're here. That's the important thing. You're alive. You're on. Recovering, and we're happy to have you here, Mary Beth. Before we get into the questions and all of the data and all of the tech and all of the wonderful, exciting things, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, thanks, Gordon. That was a very generous intro you already did, but I can tell a little bit more. So I've been, in the digital analytics space for about 10 years. Have worked with all sorts of brands as well as QSRs, as well as a lot of others. Started with a background in biology and kind of fell into the analytics space. And some of the notable places that I worked, as well as some of the QSRs that have been mentioned, have been with Kayak, the travel meta search. They're really advanced in their data analysis capabilities and how they do everything, as well as some other brands like Pandora Jewelry. And so when I started to work in the QSR space, it was really nice because all of those different industries are in very different places when it comes to data maturity and how they're running things. So it gave me a nice perspective of everything from the most advanced to some of the industries that might not be on the cutting edge. So yeah, and I started my own consulting firm in 2020, which is where things really bloomed for the QSR industry. And yeah, and I've been having a lot of fun working with the Restaurant Technology Network and doing a lot of great things in the QSR industry.
Interesting. This is just such a great space right now for restaurants. It's such a fluid space, data, the ecosystems, everything. But let's start off with data. Let's start off with the elephant in the room, data implementation. How do you approach the unique challenges of data implementation of QSRs? What are some of the key factors like brands like Wendy's should consider when leveraging data to improve their operations?
Yeah, absolutely. This one is something that I've talked about a lot. One thing with QSRs is like the level of complexity when it comes to all of these different systems. It's a huge pain point in QSRs is that historically there's a lot of legacy systems. You're trying to connect things like the POS to all of this new digital technology. So mapping for data and getting implementations right and getting that information to talk to each other is incredibly difficult. So I think one of the steps or the big learning I have is like it's not a one size fits all sort of thing. And a lot of the out of the box solutions that are not catered specifically to QSRs may not work. And that was a hard learning for me where other industries may have some tweaks they may need to make to some of those tools. The one like overarching part to start is like really understanding whatever the brand, especially these legacy brands that have a lot of, older technologies potentially and a mixture of old and new, is to understand how things like the menu work really intimately before you start to look for any technology providers and also look for technology providers that are very experienced in the space. There's other industries where I think that really does not matter. Sometimes you have industries where someone will be like, you have to have experience in, some really specific niche thing to work with us. And that's not the case. But for QSRs, it really matters. And I think the other part of that I hinted at a little bit is the mapping of technologies is something that you really have to start with. A lot of brands really don't have a good picture of everything that they currently have and how those may interact with each other and what's on maybe like an older infrastructure and it's really difficult to get data out of and what is new. And so starting with that mapping and then also it sounds kind of boring, but also starting with a really clear data dictionary of here's the metrics, both from what's coming out of the every single system, and then also like how they define things as a whole, which is something that is a very ambitious project that I'm super excited about that RTN has been working on, which is some data standards across the QSR industry. So they're trying to say, hey, what if we all mapped things the same way? So that's like a big aspiration. But in general, knowing those things is the start. And a lot of businesses skip that step. And so it's the one to go back to.
I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of these companies that are out of the box they're trying to do everything, and especially in not just the restaurant industry, but like you said, the QSR space. You know, you really need to be specific with these systems and these workflows, and what a huge undertaking you're going about right now with RTN, and I think that is massively needed to work from a general knowledge standpoint in terms of metrics. What are we measuring? How are we measuring it? And what are the units that we're using to measure these things? I think that is incredibly needed, and I'm probably not telling you anything new. So that's really incredible to hear.
It makes me think of, even though we are in the Internet of Things, there's this legacy, and this definitely outdated me, is that the classic, this system doesn't talk to the other system. And that it just cracks me up, because it was a daily thing, a daily complaint of any manager. It was the nightmare of IT, because it was like, what do I do with this? We cannot make it happen. And mapping being so critical for all of that, and especially with menus, which I think it's very critical of how the experience, and even like to the brand detail, how you structure something, because there is a uniqueness of that goes there, that it's hard to standardize. So I feel for you. Now, when it comes to loyalty programs, which is something that has become increasingly important in QSR, what are some of the most effective strategies you've seen for driving customer loyalty, and how can data play a role in optimizing these programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that I really care a lot about. I spoke at Fast Casual Executive Summit about this topic last year, I think. I think it was last year. And I have one like hard line that I say before I go through all the other strategies. And it's the reminder that the best loyalty programs are ones that remember what the customer actually wants. The loyalty programs are very big in the restaurant industry right now, and other industries as well, as becoming a way to engage and add like additional bonuses to being a loyal customer, making people feel like VIPs, et cetera. But a lot of times, CEOs are saying we have to succeed with our loyalty program, make it great, like increase purchase frequency. And that's all good and well. But the part that really makes the purchase frequency go up is understanding what a customer truly wants out of a loyalty program. And that means spending time understanding the pieces of what would make someone choose to be loyal or choose to generate points and then use those points versus going to a competitor. And in the QSR industry, especially, there's a lot of price sensitivity and a lot of offers going on as well. And I think that's another thing that a lot of QSRs are struggling with, is that you have both this really robust set of discounts and offers that people are expecting, and then you also have a loyalty program. So thinking about what that customer really wants is something that you need to acknowledge. It's going to be really different than a loyalty program for maybe a retail business with a higher price point, because that price is so specific and it's also really tied to economics. So that's like my overall focus, is that like, first, just remember that it's not this crazy race of implementing a loyalty program and it'll magically drive purchase frequency and things like that. I think that layers below that, beyond that, you just need to focus on the customer, which I know we say all the time, like customer centricity, et cetera, is to look at the data. The nice thing about loyalty programs and the power of them that's kind of on the other side of that is when people do opt into these programs, they're opting in for a lot of personalization, not only in the regards of saying, hey, Fred, this is your order. Thanks for shopping with us. but the other direction where a customer can be telling you things about themselves and giving you additional data points, such as, hey, I don't like chicken or I don't eat meat and these things. And I think I've seen a lot of businesses that are, and a lot of the big ones as well, that are still not taking advantage of that. It's called zero-party data collection. So that's another key to succeeding in a loyalty program is you can personalize based on their purchase preferences, but it's much better if the customer tells you what their purchase preference is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a key thing to loyalty programs. Another one is analyzing and segmenting the behavior within both the loyalty program and the broader business to understand like, okay, so who is the loyalty customer in comparison to a non-loyalty customer? What do they do differently? What do they buy differently? So that you can understand how you would message to them.
That I can only imagine the like, sorry, I just keep going to the uniqueness of a brand, but I find as a consumer, I want them to know me to the point that, yeah, not only basically, can you figure out that I actually love everything spicy? And can you just put like, just make sure that you know, and find a way to let me know that you appreciate my business by knowing Jose and spice, they go together.
Well, they sort of do anyways, to be honest. We don't necessarily need a loyalty program to tell us that. I kind of want to double click on the loyalty program here for a second here, MaryBeth. Do you find with third-party delivery and off-prem being so, I guess you could say, closed off with their data sharing for QSRs, do you find that there is a chasm there that makes it difficult for loyalty to fulfill and actually act as a loyalty program with all of that missing data? If I'm visiting a restaurant half the time in store and half the time on Uber, but the restaurant isn't necessarily recognizing that because they don't have the data, do you find that there's a chasm there?
Yes, that's definitely one of the big issues in this industry is that I would say like there's gaps in understanding of the customer journey, like that one you just mentioned. We don't really know whether we kind of sometimes make these assumptions like someone purchases on digital, that must mean that they're a digital customer.
Yeah.
And we should always expect that purchase on digital. And that's not necessarily true. And yes, it's super hard to capture that like individual, what do they do when they aren't purchasing on our platforms? And then yes, also it's like if somebody is a loyal like DoorDash, et cetera, customer, getting them to make the leap over to the loyalty program is something that a lot of restaurants are spending a lot of energy right now trying to figure out, because that is what, in theory, the loyalty program should be doing. Is it's like what is the reason why you would purchase within the app of the actual brand versus on a form that you may have a subscription to that you're super familiar with?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer would most likely be, and this is what a lot of brands are doing when they're wanting to bring things into direct to consumer, is having something that is exclusive or something else with the loyalty program that makes it motivating enough to move over there. But even in that case, you don't necessarily know who the customers are who are DoorDash only. So yeah, it's a huge pain point. There's definitely some services out there that try their best to do some sort of, market intelligence, at least research. It's not down to the individual consumer ID to understand a little bit more of who those customers are without asking the third-party providers themselves, because they really are very closed off with that data for the most part. But yeah, I think it's one of the primary challenges within restaurants right now is that there's that lack of understanding of the journey as a whole, like who does what. Like we can't just assume that someone, because I sometimes go through the drive-through and I don't use digital at all, or I'll just scan and that doesn't come in the same when, and I sometimes do order on a third-party provider, and like that understanding like the motivations of customers is super key. So I don't have a solution, one specific solution to it, but yes, it's a huge thing. But that is what the loyalty program should shoot to do, is find some way to capture interest that, oh, hey, they have something on the McDonald's app that I could never get through DoorDash or something like that, exclusive products, merchandise. Like there's a really interesting phenomenon in QSRs of like the merchandise being like really valuable. A lot of the different QSRs have had something where they've like launched a t-shirt or something like that. That's another thing that I see that's a little underutilized that I think brands should consider as one of the potential perks of a loyalty program.
Like a Shohei Ohtani bobblehead that's only
Yeah.
available on first party for sure. Yeah, I mean, you're right. This is a huge pain point. It's like, loyalty programs are operating with like one hand tied behind their back when there's so much of a percentage of their revenue coming from off-prem, and they don't really have that data. So anyways, that's a whole other podcast. Let's talk a little bit more about marketing technology. With MarTech rapidly evolving, how do you see QSRs using MarTech to create more personalized customer experiences? I mean, obviously we've sort of dove into this already, but let's talk about some trends, like what is working. We've talked about what we're sort of missing, but what trends are most exciting about this space right now?
I think one thing that I'm hopeful for that I'm not sure is really come all together is that with these new technologies, they're going to find smarter ways to make it possible to connect the data sources. I know that's not a sexy one, but I know a lot of restaurant brands that when it came to like traditional personalization, like what they're changing in the app website, it's been incredibly difficult, and most of them have some sort of like unique custom solution happening, and it like the ones that have been able to do more have had like a lot of people thrown at it as well. So that's one thing I'm excited about. But going into more of the flashy stuff, I think a lot of these solutions around AI focusing on like digital menu boards and things like that, and voice and recording and like personalization, not only like on the purely digital, like what's happening in the app side, but like improving customer experience in store and drive through is going to be really exciting. There's some technologies that are like, analyzing what's going on with like crew member interactions, and then being able to come back and say, hey, actually, if you do this upsell, it's way more effective than if you do this other thing. And that can really drive improvement of customer experience and also like improve sales. And then also just like the overall like personalization of, hopefully in the future, it like you said, like you want them to know that Jose likes spicy stuff, and maybe you pull up to the drive-through and immediately like the drive-through board is customized to you. Starbucks does already do some cool stuff with like more like product recommendations that I don't think it's tied directly to the person, but it's tied to what you've already ordered. Like things like that, I think are going to really make the just kind of like get that little edge, because right, like in the restaurant industry, the profit margin is always so little. So I think that with these new technologies and these new technologies getting a little cheaper, hopefully with so many coming into place, it'll be something more possible for restaurants to get into, improves the experience. And if it improves the experience, hopefully will also improve revenue to the point to make sense for these products.
And I think when the retina scans come in at the drive-through and at the kiosk, we'll be able to be a lot more personalized. A little bit scary, but Jose.
Yeah, it depends. It depends because
Jose is on board for the retina scan. Yes.
well, in Colombia, I mean, they're already doing it. That's how I go get through customs, right? Like it's just it's right here. It's inevitable. And I just had this picture, like the mom that doesn't want to buy McDonald's, let's say, because it's junk food to the kid that is growing, but she wants to get a burger, and and AI hears kids in the background, but the order is only for grown-ups. And how amazing it would be that by the time she goes to pick it up and in the other window, they have a little gift for the kid at least, or right, and yeah,
it's a good idea. That's a good idea. I didn't know where you were going with that, Jose. I thought you were going, like, at first I was like, that's really mean to the kid. Like, just give the kid a burger too. But okay, I'm on board with this suggestion.
Welcome to our show. He never knows where I'm going. Nobody knows.
No, it's a wild card.
A wild card, spicy card. So, MaryBeth, as a contributor to RTN deliverables, can you tell us about the upcoming Winning the Customer project? How do you see it impacting the restaurant industry, especially in terms of customer engagement and retention?
Yeah, I was really loved working on this project. We're really like wrapping it up now, and I think that it's going to get presented at MarTech. I'm not positive, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure. And what I think it does is it gives a clear framework of the different strategies that would be available to you, and the kind of the tactics below. So it presents different options. So I think we have 3 or so different veins of like, depending on what type of business you are and you want to be, here's some different ways to do marketing that is customer centric. And here's the boxes that you could check. So in each of those veins, we have like, okay, well, if you're coming at it from more of a super cost focused, transactional perspective, like you're wanting to be the cheapest and so on, here's some different ways that you can set up the different technologies and then also the different marketing activities that you should be considering. So I don't think we've completely landed on like how it's going to look. Like that's the part we're working on now. But it also is focused on like all of the different sizes of restaurants that could potentially want to pick that up, from a single restaurant to having a small chain, all the way up to that a huge enterprise size. So I think it's nice because it just kind of shows those examples of what you could be doing, so it's not completely kind of in the dark. Like you're already, if you're starting a new restaurant, you're already up against a lot. So, and you might not really want to be a marketing expert on top of that. So having this framework will make it, hopefully, this is our ideal, a lot easier to look through that and know the elements that you should be putting in place and when, and also how to keep focusing on the customer when you're doing that.
I see it as a natural progression. It takes me back to days in 2019, probably, when I remember the first time that I heard someone in the industry, and I mean like executives of small and mid market size chains and stuff. But it was interesting because I had never heard them in many years talk about tech stack and talk about like certain things that they were just embracing. It was just the beginning of stuff, and it was so bright, like to feel like there is so much to be done here, so much new technology to bring them, to help them. They're finally paying attention. And it was like, oh, you're paying attention? Here's a pandemic. You have
Yes.
to
Yeah.
And now a lot of restaurants have, almost, and I hate to say this, but a lot of restaurants have almost gotten too heavy, too bloated on their tech stack. So now they're looking to pare back and simplify things. But MaryBeth, let's stick with RTN here and talk about the capabilities framework. So the Restaurant Technology Network Capabilities Framework is an important initiative. How do you think it's going to help QSRs better understand and implement the right technologies to stay competitive?
Yeah, that's when I was talking about winning the customer, I really wanted to, I knew we were going to talk about this too. So I was excited because winning the customer is that really deep dive into the marketing. But what the restaurant technology capabilities framework is, it's a mouthful.
It is. Here we need an acronym. Let's make that happen.
Yeah, we'll give some feedback to our team about what we can change it to. It is across the board, like in what you were saying about like kind of tech stacks in all of these different aspects of a restaurant business. It's looking at the maturity and where should you be based on the size of your business. So it's pretty neat because it has it based on a 1 through 5 maturity scale, and then also is broken down by like single unit restaurant, multi-unit, all the way up to enterprise, and breaks it down into all sorts of categories, including like IT infrastructure, how it does touch on marketing, it touches on operations. So like almost any aspect of the business, it's breaking it down and saying, okay, if you're at a 1 maturity, which is very low, here's what that looks like. And here's the next steps you should be considering. And also here's the 5. So if you're a single unit and you are wanting to be as mature as you possibly can be in operations, it's going to look really different than a 5 in an enterprise business, because there's just certain like realistic variables of like how much budget you're really going to have to put towards those areas. So it's been a super in-depth project with a lot of like service providers and brands coming in and really arguing all of that out of like, how would that look in each of those steps with super tangible items in each, like this is the size of the team that you would potentially have, here's the types of plans that would be put in place, etc. So it's a pretty impressive document right now where, and I don't know if that one's going to be done for, and I think that there's part of the framework that's already done. We're on number 2. So you can, I think, go and see it. Once again, don't quote me. I didn't memorize everything that we have on RTN right now, but it's a pretty impressive deep dive into like essentially a maturity framework for restaurants, which hasn't necessarily been done before.
That's exciting. That's exciting. Because
Exciting, I can't help but, I'm sorry, this is
oh
where I
God,
usually
where are
go,
we,
and
what's he
we
gonna
don't
say
know
now?
where we're gonna land. I can't help myself of thinking how you bring some of biology, for example, into these, like qualifying and personalizing for restaurants and based on their goals. Like it's like categories of different things and the fluidity of what would be the next step so that they get there. This is really good because I've never heard about anything, but it makes a lot of sense. And this is what I love about interdiscipline. I'm very interdisciplinary. Is that you bring this perspective and you just, oh, hey, you know what? This is what we do here. What would it look over here? And it's awesome. So I'm not surprised about the such a unique thing. I've never heard about it. So it's great. Now, talking about perspective and data and technology shaping the future. And we've talked about that a lot. But in QSR, more specifically, what should restaurants, what is it like? What will be the role of data and technology? One. And what should restaurant operators focus on to stay ahead in this increasingly data-driven landscape?
Yeah, it's going to continue for all types of businesses be something that is more and more integral to how we run businesses. Already, we generate so many data points, and now it's hard. You can't ignore the fact that the way AI has boomed in the last few years is going to very much transform the way that businesses operate moving forward. The conference that I was at that I got super sick from, I think, was AI4 in Las Vegas. And it's completely focused on like the future of AI and the politics of it and where everything is. And they
Right.
were really putting some compelling points together that AI technologies are the new internet. So it's like if people are like naysaying, it's going to be this big boom. So for every single industry and restaurants especially, it's going to be really important. And I think part of it is because within restaurants, being optimized is the key to success. If you don't have things like your supply chain and your marketing and your operations optimized as a restaurant, you're going to fail because the profit margins are so lean already. So finding ways to be lean in the right places has always been really critical. And then on the other hand, restaurants and QSR specifically have always been almost on like the cutting edge of like media advertising. And now, hopefully, with some of these new technologies coming in and the improvement of MarTech and MarTech companies, hopefully realizing that QSRs are really valuable and starting to invest in making sure their technologies work for them, they're going to be able to bring that even more into their digital properties. That has been happening, but I think it's going to be something that's going to continue to improve. And I know that a lot of the really big QSR brands have also been some of the first to step into some of these other like experimental spaces like Meta, et cetera. So that, yes, it's just going to continue to be more and more important. And then I forgot what your second question was. I gave you a really long answer. Sorry. What was it?
No, I think you covered, but then
Oh, okay.
let's
unknowingly, she answered all
yeah,
the
exactly. No, but then let's summarize it. What would you tell our audience, our restaurateurs that are listening? What should they do? Should they follow? What is it that Wendy's and McDonald's is doing? Who do we follow? Who do we
What do you
do?
say?
Like,
What do
where do
you
I
say to the
start?
data? What do you say to the data deniers out there who refuse to implement data into their operations?
I mean, I think without being too mean, I'll just say that like unless you have some other special thing, you're going to get left in the dust. Unless you have like some really compelling, I don't know, brand story or something. But if you think about the brands that are succeeding and out competing some of the old farts too, they're ones that have really looked at improving something like their customer experience. I think about like Chick-fil-A, they really have nailed customer experience. And I almost guarantee you they did that with a lot of data, whether it was probably a big combination of things they did to undertake that. So I think also any data deniers, I would encourage you to expand your definition of what data is, because every single point that you create, whether it's customer feedback or your P&L, like all of those things are data in my mind. And I think sometimes instead they stay really specific and like, ooh, I don't want to I don't know, implement Google Analytics on my app or something like that. But data points are all of the information you have about your business. And since the dawn of businesses and time, business owners have been using data points to make decisions. And the ones that have been using the data points to consider their strategies a little bit better, I guarantee you are the ones that are performing better. So that's what I would say to the data naysayers. And then overall, I tend to take a pretty pragmatic approach and say, focus on whatever will give you the biggest win for the smallest investment. There's some sexy stuff out there, and it can be really tempting to chase after it. But if you're not McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, et cetera, who have these crazy big budgets and have their own innovation teams that just get to go run around and like spend money on this stuff to play around with it, focus on the parts that will get you the most improvement, which sometimes isn't in marketing. Actually, I would say a lot of the times it's not going to be in marketing. Improving marketing spend as far as like reducing costs where you are potentially wasting is one, but like overall, generally looking at supply chain operations, et cetera, is the place where you're going to see major improvements based on the investment that you're making. So,
I don't know if you guys heard that just over the last minute or so, but that was the sound of multiple mics being dropped. There were so many great points, Mary
Yes.
Beth. Thank you so much. That was amazing. We're gonna have to revisit this. I'm gonna dive in myself and just study everything that you've just explained to us. Really amazing stuff. That is all the time we have for this episode. Mary Beth, now is your time to plug away. Where can people connect with you? What's your platform of choice?
absolutely. LinkedIn is the best place to get a hold of me. So if you just search MaryBeth Maskovas, there's only one. So you'll find me. And I actually do respond to all my messages. So if you have a question or anything, that's the most important place to look for. Also, my firm is called Insight Lime Analytics. So insightlimeanalytics.com is where you can take a look at the services that we offer.
Amazing. And don't be a data denier. Follow Mary Beth's instructions and her advice. Speaking of plugs, this podcast is sponsored by Dine Pricing, real-time restaurant profitability. Dine Pricing uses artificial intelligence to improve restaurant profitability by dynamically updating menus across digital channels like Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub. Thanks again to Mary Beth for joining us. Until next week, say goodbye, Jose.
We're all data making machines, so don't be a data denier. Goodbye, Jose.
I never know what the man is going to say. I truly, truly don't. Mary Beth, that was amazing. Really glad that we could finally get you on the show. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.